With the release of the version 2.7, we can pick a standard character to join our account totally for free. In this video, I will talk about what character you should pick, having in consideration how viable and strong they are, while also letting you know good eidolons in case you wanna know if it's worth picking them. So, just before the video starts, don't forget to leave your like and your sub. 98% of you are not subscribed, and doing so would motivate me a lot to continue this. Also, don't forget to follow me on my Twitch. I stream there sometimes, and I will be streaming my Sunday pulls there. If you want some more discount when you buy Stellar Jades, don't forget to use code DFNX at U7buy. All my links are in the description, so make sure to give them a look, and without any more furthers, let's now talk about the free selector. Before we start, I would like to clarify some things. First, if you are a new player and you don't understand much about the game, in this selector, you will only be able to pick one character between the 7 characters we currently have on the standard banner. And what are standard characters? Those are characters that are not limited, and you will eventually get them on the standard banner or by losing your 50/50s on actually limited characters. And, no matter who you pick, I will be posting a guide for every standard character throughout these next few days. So, I advise you to keep an eye on the channel. But, nonetheless, this selector is huge for any player, veteran or not. And before we start talking about the characters individually, I want to give you all a total of 2 advices. The first one is to take your time and not waste your free ticket right away. Imagine you want one of the characters and you pick them for free, and in the next patch you lose a 50/50 to them. You could be having 2 different characters instead of a copy. And the second reason for you to take your time is that we are about to get a new pet on the game, meaning that the new Remembrance standard 5-star could be on his way. So, I advise you to save this ticket until almost the end, which will be around the version 3.2. And the last advice I will give you is to completely ignore this list if you really want a character. If you really like a character, you should get it even if they are completely useless. So, now that I said all of this, let's start talking about the characters individually. I will start by talking about the captain of the Silverman Guards. Gepard is a nice preservation character that is focused on shielding your team while freezing the enemies every now and then. Gepard can provide you a strong team-wide shields, while also tanking probably most of the hits enemies will do on your team. And the fact he has a self-revive also helps you a lot when the subject is to maintain your team alive. Not only that, but he also has a good energy economy and is skill point positive character in most teams, with the only teams that require him to use more skill points being Acheron teams. But, even though he offers strong shields, he is reliant on his ultimate to do that, unlike the limited characters Venturine or Fushuan, who can sustain your team just by using their skills, for example. And to top it all, as the game progresses, Gepard has been having difficulties to keep characters alive, especially against the hardest modes we have. Gepard's best team nowadays consists in Acheron teams, since he can use the light cone that applies debuffs when attacked while having a small chance of inflicting debuffs on his skill. But he can also be used on any team that needs a shielder. But what if you already have him and you are looking to see if it's worth to get some eidolons? Well, if that's your case, then it's your lucky day, because Jeppy here is a character that benefits the most from his early eidolons, with his E1 being his best eidolon, followed by his E2. So, for Gepard, as a new player, I think he can add some value on your account, especially if you need a sustainer. I don't think his value is on par with the better units we will see until the end of the video, because as you progress through the game, you will unlock more sustainers, lowering your needs to get him. And for the other players, I think you should only consider him if you are needing a second sustainer for your other team, or if you are needing a sustainer for your Acheron team. But once again, Gallagher exists and he appears a lot on banners and events. Since I started with a sustain, why not talk about the other sustainer from the standard banner? Bailu is a lightning abundance character that is focused on healing your team while mitigating his damage. Bailu is the only sustainer for now that has a revive included in their base kit, meaning that with her, even if a character dies, she will revive them and they will be able to continue fighting. She also has a good emergency healing throughout her ultimate, something that will also provide you with a constancy healing and damage reduction effect. And for last, is that if you build her well, you will most likely just use her basic attack, meaning that she will be super skill point friendly. But, even though she revives and heals well, she doesn't have cleanses, meaning that if you are unlucky, one of your characters can be crowd controlled and never play. I'm looking at you, Jingo 1 mains. She also doesn't have any type of extra utility at her base kit, meaning that besides healing, she will never do anything else, which leads us to our biggest weakness, which is being power crept by mostly every other sustain that came after the launch of the game. Just like Gepard, Bailu is extremely universal and will always fit any team you will have in mind. The only question is she better than some other characters? Because for now, the only character that gains something with having Bailu as a sustainer is Blade. And he gets even more with Lynx, a free 4-star healer. But what if you already have her and you want to see if her Eidolons can save her? Well, I'm afraid to tell you, but even though her early Eidolons are usable, her best ones are her E4, followed by her E6. Since with them, she will start buffing a bit the damage of your team, while also having another revive. So for Bailu, as a new player, I think you should completely ignore her, even if you are needing a sustainer. Trust me, you can clear the early game with Natasha, a free healer, and eventually you will get Lynx for free. Not to mention the fact that you will have Gallagher, a 4-star healer that appears a lot on banners and on events. And for other players, I think you should only consider her if you are near getting her E4. And even then, other sustainers will give you more buffs that will make your life easier. Moving on from sustainers to actually damage dealers. Himeko is a Fire Erudition character that is focused on dealing a lot of AoE damage thanks to her follow-ups. Himeko is a super versatile DPS that can be played both as a crit-based DPS, both solo or in duo carry setups, or as a super break DPS, where she will make use and abuse of her follow-up mechanic. Not only that, but she also has a very solid AoE damage, making her perfect for modes like Pure Fiction where enemies respawn, but even though she shines on multi-target scenarios, the same cannot be said for single-target content, since she will struggle a bit with that. Also, since the trigger for her follow-up is related to breaking enemies, if the enemies cannot be broken, she loses a lot of value. And to top it all up, she needs a bit of advancement if you want her to compete against other AoE-focused characters. As for now, Himeko's best team is a super break team, and that will only be more fortified with the release of Fugyu, a character that will allow Himeko to basically double the amount of follow-ups she does. But you can also be paired with Herta, another free character that will both get her and her Eidolons just for free. And no matter what team you pick for her, I can assure you that at least she will help you get more rewards out of any content related to multi-target scenarios. But are her Eidolons worth to get? Himeko's Eidolons are actually quite useful due to their strong buffs, but her E1 stands out as the most valuable out of them all, since it will provide you a speed buff for your Himeko after using a follow-up. Something is useful no matter what playstyle you do with her. But what happens if you already have her E1? If that's the case, then know that the best Eidolon after that is her E4. So for Himeko, as a new player, I think you should consider her as one of your top picks. Even though you might not find any use for her in the beginning of your journey, trust me, once you unlock Pure Fiction, you will thank God for having an Himeko by your side. No matter if you pair her with the super break characters, especially the upcoming Fugyu, but also if you pair her with a free character everyone gets, Herta. And for other players, I think you should also consider her for your Pure Fiction clears, especially those who already use her and could go for her E1. But I think you shouldn't consider her if you already have both better super break characters and AoE characters. Now let's talk about the single target oriented DPS. Yanqing is a nice hunt character that is focused on dealing damage to a single target opponents. Yanqing is quite good for new players, since he gets a lot of free sets built into his kit that will for sure be useful for any players having difficulties building him. But being exclusive to single target also has its downsides, since it's harder to play with him on other game modes. Not to mention how dependent he is on a good shield and energy, because if he gets hit once, all his self buffs disappear, and since all he has is extra crits, you will find him being naturally weaker than any most recent DPS, and that will most likely leaving him catching dust on your account in the long term. For team options, Yanqing is not picky, and he likes pretty much any standard hyper carry team, with Harmony or Nihility characters to increase his damage and a good shielder to maintain his passive. So, if you are wondering if you have a decent team for him, you most likely have it. But he may be weak at E0, but what about his extra Eidolons? On Yanqing's case, his best Eidolon is actually his E1, followed by his E4. And if you think those are massive improvements, I'm sorry to tell you, but they aren't. Those are just small damage improvements and nothing that special. So for Yanqing, just like Bailu, I don't think he's worth to pick no matter if you are a new player or veteran. He will have little to no use on your account and he will just be catching dust in there. And it's sad that not even Eidolons are a good reason to pull for him. We already talked about the DPS for an AoE scenario and one for the single target scenario. Let's now talk about the one that fulfills both situations. Clara is a physical destruction character that is focused on being a DPS with her counter attacks. She's a very tanky DPS character since she gets so many defensive things built into her kit. And just like I said, she works on both single and multi-target scenarios. And she not only works, but she also deals extremely high damage that until today can be competitive enough against other limited DPSs. And the fact that she is a slow unit that can deal most of her damage outside her turn means that she can take advantage of turn-based buffs. But she may be good, but not everything is perfect with Clara. Since she depends on being hit to deal good damage, she struggles against enemies that are slow or enemies that are not aggressive towards us. For her teams, Clara is also another character that is not picky, and since she deals a lot of damage outside her turn, this leaves her with possibilities of being played on a double DPS teams with March, Fei Xiao or even Yunli for example, while also enjoying the good old hypercarry teams. And for Eidolons you ask, Clara best Eidolons are among her earliest ones, especially her E1 followed by her E2. These two buffs itself already put Clara on a super strong level, since she will buff herself and a main part of her kit gets a great quality of life update. But if you are fortunate enough to get her to E6, you now enter a new funny playstyle of having a chance of seeing Svarog attack no matter who gets attacked in your team. So for Clara, as a new player, I think you should consider her as one of your pools because she will help you clear the game content no matter if they are single target or multi-target oriented. And for other players, I think you should only consider her if you like her counter-attack playstyle and or you are near of getting her E1 or E2. Now let's talk about my favorite character from all Honkai Star Rail and a complete jack of all trades into the game. Welt is an imaginary nihility character that is focused on being a DPS, a debuffer, or even a semi-sustainer for your teams depending on what you plan with him. Like I said, Welt is super flexible in the role he will be fulfilling, since he has good damage and utility built into his kit, but he also has decent defensive utility thanks to his slows and imprisonments debuffs, allowing you sometimes to run a sustainless team on certain modes. But his main weakness, in my opinion as a Welt main, is the fact that his skill is a bounce skill, making him not reliable in AoE scenarios, and his slows can be good to maintain you alive, but can be bad for specific game modes or teams. For Welt teams, if you wish to make him a DPS, he will be just like the others and will be glad with the hypercarry team format. But things start to get interesting if you start thinking outside of the box and start using him as a semi-sustainer or as a debuffer for some specific teams, like Acheron for example, or Super Break. So yeah, as you can see, he's a total jack of all trades. And are Welt Eidolons any good? Oh, they are. It will just depend on what you do with him. If you wish to make him a DPS, then his base Eidolons is for sure his E1, followed by his E2. But if you wish to use him more as a debuffer, then his E4 will be his best Eidolon for that, followed by his E2 as well. So, for Welt, both as a new player or veteran, I think he's usable and can be a good pick, but only if you have in mind what you want to do with him. And if you are near getting his E2, since he's a great mark for both DPS and debuffer playstyle, maybe he's worth a chance for you to see what he offers to your account. Now, as the last character we need to talk, we have the buffer from the standard banner. Bronya is a Wind Harmony character that is focused on buffing your team's damage and providing extra turns. Bronya is one of the few characters that provide a complete 100% action advance on her skill, allowing your designated character to act twice in a row. Not only that, but Bronya is extremely versatile and will slot in a lot of teams. And all of this while also providing amazing offensive buffs to help you in battle. But having to speed tune her right can be a weakness, since it will force you to get a lot of good relics to make her super fast, or needing to be lucky to have her just a bit slower than your DPS. Not only that, but her one turn buff from her skill makes her completely useless to play with some characters, and I guess that's one of the reasons why she's being power crept by Sunday. For Bronya teams, even though some of her buffs have problems being maintained, she's an extremely flexible character that will work wonders with any DPS that likes to attack a lot of times. So, as long as you have a DPS that scales with crits and or likes to attack a lot of times, she will always be a fit for those teams. But what about her Eidolons? Do they solve anything? Actually they do. If we just go and analyze what are the best Eidolons for her, having in consideration the buffs they provide, I would say her E2 is the best, followed by her E6. But her E1 is also worth mentioning, since it offers you a way to not spend a lot of skill points with her. So for Bronya, both as a new player or veteran, I think you should consider getting her, especially if you are close for her E2. She will be an amazing buffer that no matter what you get in the future, like our new God Sunday, she will never lose value and you can always pair them together. So, who are you going to pick as your free standard 5-star? I will now leave a tier list with everything I said in a short term for you to recap what I said and take your decision. I hope with this video you are now able to understand what every character does and if you need them on your account. Share this video with everyone you know that started the game or is deciding who to pick. If you ended up liking this video, don't forget to leave your sub and your like. Also, I stream a lot on my Twitch and you are able to win some free blessings there, so make sure to give it a look. Don't forget I will be posting a guide for each and every standard character, so no matter who you pick, you will know how to build them. Use code DFENIX on U7 buy for a discount when buying Stellar Jades. A special thanks to my members for trying to support me, and thank you so much for keeping me company. Have an amazing day everyone, and have a good one.